So today's daf is Mem Aleph, and the Gemara now has a second pircha to what was assumed before on daf Mem Amid Beis, that we could derive from the matir of Tiglachas Mitzorah. If you want to derive from the matir of Tiglachas Mitzorah as a matir to override Hakafas Hazakan from the extra words Kano, then you have a problem, because maybe the Torah is telling you, right? So you want to derive that Tiglachas Mitzorah is betar from the fact that Torah was matir Tiglachas Mitzorah, even though he's violating Hakafas Hazakan, and that's going to be from the extra words Kano, and the Gemara then rejects it with the following dechia, and that is that maybe the Torah is allowing Tiglachas Mitzorah even with a tar, but not only with a tar, not exclusively. And the mitzvah of Tiglachas Mitzorah has a broader scope. It's not limited to tar, but the Torah wants to tell you that even if the Mitzorah opts for using a tar to fulfill his mitzvah of Tiglachas Mitzorah, and he therefore l'chora would violate Hashchosas Hazakan, and he doesn't violate that because the Torah was matir through Esei Dochalosasa. So the Gemara rejects this now and offers two pirchas on that techiyah. The first pircha was that if you're going to tell me that b'malaket v'rehitni shaper dami, then the Torah didn't have to say this extra ribui, and I could have derived that a mitzorah is permitted to be malech b'tar from a kal v'chomer from Tiglachas Nazir, which is a matir on the Iser lav of Hakafas HaRosh. And now Vesu, furthermore, I'll give you a second pircha to that dechia. The Isal Kedaito ki ovid b'malakit b'ritni mitzvah ka'ovid. If you're going to expand the scope of Tiglachas Mitzorah, that mitzvah could be fulfilled even with other kelim that are not tar, then we have a problem here because of the principle of Reish Lakish, meaning that if you have a method of fulfilling the mitzvah without violating the lav, we don't apply Esei Dochalosasa. And the Gemara says, "Mi lo ksiv tar." After all, you're going to argue that in Tiglachas Mitzorah you don't have a specific word tar, and you may remember that back on Daf Mem Amud Aleph, the Gemara had established that there were, based on the Mishnah in the Goyim, that there were three cases of a mitzvah of Tiglachas. There was Nazir, there was Leviim, and there was Mitzorah. And the Gemara pointed out that Bishleim, in the cases of Nazir and Leviim, we had explicit indication in the Torah that you need a tar to fulfill that mitzvah. But the Gemara was bothered by Mitzorah, according to that brisa, and Mitzorah doesn't say explicitly that the Torah requires a tar to fulfill the mitzvah of Tiglachas Mitzorah. Therefore, I might have assumed that you could fulfill the mitzvah of Malaket Uberhit, the other utensils, other kelim, other than tar, is then Kiderei Shlokish Yom Kol Mokush Hatamotzi Esei Velosas Yatayochel Lekayim Eshnei Mutavim Lav Yovo Esei V'Yitches Eslos Haseh. And Reish Lakish introduces a limiting, restricting rule to Esei Dochalos Haseh, and it means that Esei Dochalos means that if you cannot fulfill the essay without violating the lav, then we apply Esei Doch. But if it's Efshel Lekayim Shneim, then we don't apply Esei Dochalos Haseh. And now you're telling me that in Tiglachas Mitzorah he can mekayim both of them. Why? Because he could fulfill his mitzvah Tiglachas Mitzorah through a malket and a rehitni, even though in such cases he does not violate the iser of hashchosas hashchosas. Just 1 second of of hashchasas hazakon, and then there's no essay dochalosa, so there would be no heter for the sake of the mitzvah of tiglachas mitzora to override the iser of giluach hazakon bitar, because it's efshel kaim shneim. He can fulfill the mitzvah of tiglachas mitzora without a tar and without violating the law. So now, just to summarize, again, this is all the summary of Daf Mem. We come to the conclusion that according to the Rabbanon, the mitzvah of Tiglachas Mitzora must be with a tar. And that's derived from the fact that the Torah with the words kano was matir Tiglachas Mitzora despite the violation of Hashchasas HaZakon. And that means that the mitzvah of Tiglachas Mitzora could be fulfilled with and only with a tar, and therefore there would be an Yefshel Kaim Shneim if he is going to violate the Yisur Hashchasas HaZakon. All that is very fine according to the Chachamim. But now the Gemara wants to analyze the Shita of Rabbi Eliezer that was recorded in the Mishnah in Makos. And his Shita is that Tiglachas Mitzora could in fact, indeed, be fulfilled with a Malkate or a Rehitni. And now the question is the following. There was a ribui in the words kano to teach me that Tiglachas Mitzora overrides the Yisur Hashchasas Zakon. But why do I need that? Why do I need that pasuk? After all, one second. Right, according to Rabbi Loza, let's go over it one more time. Tiglachas Mitzora could be fulfilled even Malkate and Rehitni. Oh, so if that be the case, then Tiglachas Mitzora is going to override the Yisur Hashchasas Zakon, even in the case of Milkat Urehitni. So now the question arises, according to Rabbi Eliezer, who holds that Hashchasas Zakon applies even b'milkat urehitni, so how do we know that Tiglachas Mitzora requires tar? Again, the Mishnah in Negoim establishes that L'Kuli Alma, there's no machlokas mentioned over there. There's no dissenting opinion. Everyone agrees that Tiglachas Mitzora requires tar. But the machlokas between Rabbi Eliezer and the Chacham is regarding the Yisur Hashchasas Zakon, where Rabbi Eliezer has a broader scope, and he's machmer, and the Yisur Hashchasas Zakon applies even in Malkate Urehitni. Now, according to him, how do we understand that Tiglachas Mitzora needs Dafka Bitar? According to the Rabbanan, we figured it out because of the Essay Dochalosas, and it was Ef Shalakaim Shneim. But according to Rabbi Eliezer, who's saying that Hashchasas Zakon will apply even in the case of Milkat Rehitni, now we have to know, my timer, how does he know, how does he derive that Tiglachas Mitzora requires Dafka Tar? And the answer is Yolif Rosha. Although Rabbi Eliezer does not derive it from from the pasuk of Hayabiyom Shlish Vezikano, he doesn't derive from Zikano, but it says Rosha. Rosha is also redundant. The Sanya we learned in a Brisa, and we're talking now about Tiglachas Mitzora. Rosha Matam, since the Torah requires the Mitzora to be megalech everything, every last hair in his body, why the Torah has to specify Rosho? And the Gemara, quoting this Brisa, gives the following answer, that the Rosho is coming to teach me Lefishanem Gabi Nazir. The Torah says in the Parsha of Nazir, Tar lo yavral Rosho, that during the course of his Naziris, he's not allowed to cut his hair with a tar. Yochai might think af Nazir Mitzora. What happens to the Nazir? happens to also be a mitzora, and he has a mitzvah of tiglachas, mitzora of tara during the days of his nazirus, Kenai might think that he's not allowed to be megaleach rosho b'tar, and he cannot fulfill this mitzvah of giluach rosho because he's now a nazir. And the Torah says, with regard to nazir tar lo yavar al rosho tamid lomar rosho, the pasuk in Tiglachas Mitzora adds the redundant word rosho to teach me that even rosho is allowed when, even when he's in nazir. So a mitzora is chayav to be megaleach rosho because of the essay of giluach mitzora, and that's going to override the losasa of tar lo yaval rosho. And also, by the way, the essay of gadel pera siyar rosho. So from the fact that we need a pasuk to be marba that even if this mitzora is also a nazir, nevertheless he's megaleach rosho and he violates the isa of tar lo yaval rosho of nazir. So we see clearly that the mitzvah of tiglachas mitzora is with a tar, because again, if tiglachas mitzora could be fulfilled in other ways, then he would not need to override the Isur of Nazir, because Isur of Nazir is only bitar, and it would be Efshel L'Kaim Shneim, and we would not apply the principle of Esei Dochalosas, but rather Reish Lakish's limiting principle. So now the Gemara rejects this derivation, according to Rabbi Eliezer, in the same way that it rejected this derivation according to Rabbanim Mimai. How do you know that Tiglachas Mitzora is only B'tar Dilma Liolam Afilu Likto B'Malkeid Uberehitni? Maybe Tiglachas Mitzora, and again, as we said over and over again, with regard to the mitzvah Tiglachas Mitzora, everybody agrees, Ein Poseach Peo Mitzavtsev, that you require a tar. But maybe we should say that you could be malaked with Malkeid and Rehitni. And the Torah wants to say mitzvah ka'avid, although he could have fulfilled the mitzvah without overriding the lav of Nazir of Tar lo Yarol Rosho, if he's both a Nazir and a mitzvah. And then you'll tell me v'chitema is Tar Lomali. Why did the pasuk have to be matir through the ribuy of Rosho? That doesn't prove anything. L'meimra de'afilu b'tar. Right? So we would say the following, that since the mitzvah has various options of fulfilling his mitzvah of tiglachas, and one of those options is tar, the Torah wants to say with the word rosho that he's allowed to override the Isur Nazir of tar rosho for the sake of the mitzvah of tiglachas mitzvah, even though tiglachas mitzvah does not exhaust itself dafka in tar. Salkedai tchamina. Hol v'gabi nazir ki ovid b'tar mechayev is gabi mitzora nami l'chayev kamash malan delo. Why do I need this ribuy of rosho? Because I would think that since a nazir is megaleach rosho b'tar, if he does so, he violates the law of tar l'yar rosho and he's chayev malchus. Then even if he's a mitzora and he's megaleach b'tar, in order to fulfill his mitzvah of tiglachas mitzvah b'tara, l'chayv yishbichayv malchus kamashman delo. And again, the same logic that we're not going to apply Reish Lakish, but we're going to apply Esei Dochalosa, even in the case of Efshel L'Kaim Shneim. So that's why I need the extra ribuy rosho to teach me that even if the mitzvah, despite his other options, he chooses to be megalech b'tar, to fulfill his mitzvah, he's not going to be in violation of the Isur of Nazir. And that's what the Chiddush of Rosho is. So Gemara rejects this because Reish Lakish. If the Tiglachas mitzvah could be fulfilled even with other kelim, without violating the Isur Nazir, and he's not using a tar, is mitzvah ka'avid, is then, what are you going to tell me? That the extra word rosho is coming to teach me that a nazir mitzvah is allowed to be galech b'tar, That can't be. Mita lo kosav tar kiresh lakish. The Torah doesn't say that the mitzora, Torah doesn't explicitly say that a mitzora is allowed to be galech betar and violate the Iser Nazir if he happens to be a Nazir in a mitzora. That can't be because of Reish Lakish, who says that you don't apply Esei Dochalosis Efshel L'Kaim Shneim. So we have no choice but to assume that the extra word Rosha is coming to teach me that a mitzora, in the context of his mitzvah Giluah, can only fulfill that mitzvah with a tar. And therefore there's an absolute head-on collision with the Iser Lav of Nazir, of Tar Lo Yala Rosho, in a situation of Efshel L'Kaim Shneim. So now that we've justified the drasha, the extra word Rosho, according to Rabbi Lezer, now the Gemara turns around and says, Rabbanan, the Rabbanan derived that Tiglachas Mitzora has to be Dafka B'tar from the words Kano, is High Rosho My Darshibe. Now they have to deal with the extra word Rosho, which according to Rabbi Lezer was teaching me that Tiglachas Mitzora is Dafka B'tar, but they derive that same conclusion from the word Zakana. So what are they going to do with Rosho? Mi boiluhu lemidche lav dehakafa. The Rabbanan need the word Rosho to teach me that the mitzvah Tiglachas Mitzora overrides the Iser of Hakafas HaRosh. And this has to do with a different sugya, which is called Hakafas Rosho, whether it's Shmei Hakafa or not. Is there a violation of Hakafa in a case where he removes all the hair from his head, not just on the peyos? So again, we're going to use the word Rosho to teach us that the mitzvah of Tiglachas Mitzora overrides the Isur HaKofas HaRosh. The Sanya, we learned to the Braisa, and now we're looking at the Pasuk in Parshas Kedoshim. It says, Lo Sakifu Pas Roshechem, which addresses Yisrael. Is Yochel, I might think, Af Mitzora Ken, that the Isur of HaKofas Pas HaRosh should apply even in the case of Mitzora's fulfilling his mitzvah of Tiglachas Mitzora. And he's not allowed to be Makiv Peos Rosho, Talmud Loma Rosho. Therefore, the parsha of Mitzora, in the parsha of Mitzvahs Tiglachas Mitzora Betara, the Torah adds the word Rosho to teach me that mitzvah of Tiglachas Mitzora overrides the law of Lo Sakifu, because of Esei Docha Lo Saseh. And that applies even to the seir of his peos. That's included in the mitzvah of Tiglachas Mitzora. And this is what we derive from the extra word Rosho, according to the Chachamim. In fact, the Gemara, Lama Lila Michtav Rosho. Why do I need the word Rosho to teach me that Esei Docha Lo Saseh and the mitzvah of Tiglachas Mitzora overrides the law of Hakofas HaRosh? Typically, why not derive it Mizkano? And as we had in the Brisa back on Daf Mem Amid Beis, we derive from the words Kano according to the Rabbanan in the parsha of Tiglachas Mitzora, that the mitzvah of Tiglachas Mitzora overrides Hashchasas HaZakan. So why do I need a special pasuk of Rosho to derive that Tiglachas Mitzora overrides Hakofas HaRosh? We have Hashchasas Zakana. The Sanya we learned in the Brisa, Zakana Matamid Lomer, after the Torah commands the Mitzora to take off every last hair of his body. Why did the Torah have to specify and add the word Zakano? And the answer is to teach me Esei Dochalos Selfish, and Nemar it says with regard to Kohanim in Vayikra Chafal Parshas Emer, it says Upasa Kohanim Lo Yigalechu, that the Kohanim are enjoined from Giluach Paas Hazakan Betar is Yochel. I might think Af Mitzora. If a Mitzora who's a Kohen is coming to fulfill his mitzvah Tiglachas, he's not allowed to be Megaleach Zakano Betar, Talmud Lomer Zakano. The extra read on the word Zakano is teaching me that even though he's a Kohen, he became a mitzora and he's megalech kano, because the mitzvah say of giluach mitzora, of tiglach mitzora, overrides the loss of pasuk on lo yalechu. So the Gemara asks, lama li miktav rosho, lama li mitzvah keno. Once we know that esei dochalosa applies in the case of ashchas hazakon, then likewise it should apply in the case of giluach rosho. And one ribui would have sufficed. And the Gemara now is going to embark upon a tzrichusa to tell me and teach me why I need both rosho and zkana. So again, let's just go over the question of the Gemara now. We had a brisa that derives that in the case of mitzora, for the mitzvah of tiglachas mitzvah b'tara, he's allowed to be megalech zkano and violate the Yisur Hashchasa Zakon. That was the extra word, zkano. So now, if that be the case, that the mitzvah say of Giluach Mitzora overrides Hashchasa Zakon, then why do I need a pasuk of Rosho to teach me that the essay of Tiglachas Mitzora overrides the Yisur of Giluach of Hakofas HaRosh? Tzricha, we need both. Because of Rachmana, Skano, below Kosav. If we only had Skano, not Rosh Avamina, I would have said that Hakofas Kol HaRosh Lo Shmei Hakofa. This is a sugya that I indicated earlier when the Torah prohibits Giluach HaPeos of Pa'as Rosho in the Pasuk Sakif for Pas Rosh Shechem. What does that mean? Does that mean he cut off his peos and only his peos, or he cut off all the hair on his head, and that's called kol harosh, and that also, because he's also cutting off his peos, is included in the lab. In other words, what is the Torah saying? Don't cut off your peos. That looks like the goyim, right? But you're leaving the rest of your hair, or no? Maybe if you take off all the hair, including the peos, it's a special akofas, isa akofas harosh, on the peos of his rosh. Now, in the case of Mitzora, he's megalech kol rosho. So therefore, if I would hold, according to this Havamina, that akofas kol rosh lo shmei akofa, you don't violate Isra akofa, then therefore you don't override Isra akofas rosh through tiglachas Mitzora, because akofas rosh lo shmei akofa is therefore lahachi koser rachmana rosho. So the Torah in rosho is teaching me two things. Number one, it's teaching me that there's a violation of the Isra Akofas HaPeos HaRosh, even in the case of Akofas Kol HaRosh, because Akofas Kol HaRosh, Shmei Akofa, and the Torah is teaching me that for the sake of the mitzvah of Akofa, of Tiglachas Mitzora, we could override the Isra of Akofas HaRosh. And now we turn to Daf Mem Aleph Amud Beis.